All right, let's do a take two. I was trying to see if I could finish this movie review before going out to dinner, but it did not happen, so let's try it today. So, The Flash 2023. This movie has obviously been marked with controversy and production delays, the whole 9 yards, so it's natural for a movie like this to already have such negativity about it. So before this movie was released, reputable people, such as the head of DC Films now, were saying that everyone should see it and it's one of the greatest comic book movies ever and it's so good. Then on the other hand, we had a lot of people talking about how it looked terrible and it looked embarrassingly bad. So who was right? In my opinion, both opinions have merit. Like usual, the opinion is like usual. The truth usually lies somewhere in the middle. I did not have high hopes for this movie, if I'm being honest. The DCEU movies have mostly been misses for me, and I started to see some of the early reactions before the movie released and anticipated that this movie was going to be a mess. But I think deep down in the core of this movie, there's a really good movie in there. When I was watching the beginning of the movie, weird baby microwave CGI aside, I kept thinking to myself, damn, this is honestly what the Justice League movie should have been. High stakes, quality action, appropriate humor that doesn't sacrifice the tone, nor does it sacrifice the story. Superheroes working together, having relationships with each other, the whole 9 yards. I thought the beginning was awesome. I would even say overall the quality and tone was consistent throughout the entire movie. A lot of people are critical of Ezra Miller's Barry Allen, and I get it. I think part of that is due to them not being the most likable person right now, to say the least. But, if you turn off your comics brain and you put on your movie brain real quick, you come to enjoy their portrayal and the growth that the character has throughout the movie. I think having two Barrys was great. It really gave the star a chance to show their acting chops as two different characters, had some great comedic moments, made sense in context of the story, and I think it was handled pretty well. I will say that I've never watched any of the CW shows, but to be honest, for the CW Flash not getting an opportunity to at least cameo here, I thought that was a missed opportunity. I know a lot of people wanted him to co-star in the way that Ezra's second Barry did, but I don't always trust the TV to movie transition for that type of television, so I understand why some bigwig Warner Brothers executive wouldn't trust that either. That being said, that character should have gotten his moment in this movie. Anyways, moving on. Seeing older Barry have to be the mature big brother and show the younger Barry how to use his abilities. Seeing the older Barry have to be the mature big brother and show the younger Barry how to use the abilities of the Flash while kind of teaching him how to honestly be a functioning adult. That was pretty humorous and kind of kept the movie moving along. I thought this was a great comedic dynamic and a good way to show that there's no real perfect way to change the future by manipulating the past, which goes well with what the movie's theme is, which is you have to learn how to let go. Speaking of letting go, we get an introduction to Michael Keaton's Batman. I have some thoughts about this that I do wonder if the general public would agree with me or not, but I feel like maybe the majority of people seeing this movie this weekend are maybe not going to get as much of a nostalgia high from seeing Michael Keaton in this role as maybe some of the Warner Brothers executives think. I mean, obviously his time as the Batman was iconic and industry defining, all that stuff, but they may honestly be like 10 years a little bit too late to have this impact that they were hoping they would have. So two companies that have successfully benefited from the nostalgia wave a lot, Marvel Studios and Nintendo. If you look at how the Marvel Cinematic Universe does all their wow nostalgia moments that people go crazy for, they only really go back to the start of the new millennium. If they tried introducing some stuff from before that, even though there's not as much to pull from, I don't think people would really care too much, to be honest. Because probably the common age of people that are seeing this movie, they grew up with stuff that came out around the year 2000, those different franchises, Spider-Man, X-Men, stuff like that. I do want to say a quick side note that when I saw No Way Home, there were these 16-year-olds going crazy, jumping up and down next to me in the theater when the old Spider-Man showed up, which I thought it was funny because they were probably babies when Spider-Man 3 came out. But, that's just a funny side note. But that's just a funny side note. Nintendo, they do things a little differently. Nintendo uses nostalgia to their advantage for their franchises that have been popular for like 30 plus years, honestly. The difference is Nintendo continually keeps their properties that are popular in relevance non-stop. Keaton's Batman is something many people think about often, I'm sure, I'm not sure that Keaton's Batman is something many people think about often because it's just been so long since anyone has had a need to see it. Not to take away from its quality or from its impact, but it's just been so long since that's been a relevant franchise, the Keaton Batman franchise. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that when you bring back Keaton and you honestly don't even really use him that well, it kind of becomes pointless. I know this would almost certainly never happen, or at least wouldn't for this movie, and the insanity that it went through with its production and all those issues, but I think the effect that the creators hoped for would have been more likely had they had Christian Bale's Batman be the one that popped up. And you know, if you really wanted people to do that, oh my God, I can't believe they got this guy to come back and reprise this role. Christian Bale's Batman was the one that would have had that effect with audiences, in my opinion. Regardless, Keaton is in this movie. I think them having to coax him into coming out of retirement was kind of unnecessary, but at the very least, it was kind of funny, so it was fine to me. The middle of the movie kind of started to drag a bit for me, but we did get some solid action as the current team goes, and they get together, they plan on breaking in to save quote-unquote Clark. I didn't see a point in having them believe it'd be Clark Kent, considering Sasha Calle as Supergirl was all over the promotion for this movie. But it wasn't that bad, but it was fine as a narrative reason. They break out Supergirl, we get some exposition from her as to why Zod is on Earth. I think this part of the narrative was kind of weak. They just kind of needed a reason to have Zod in this movie, so they did whatever it takes to get that. Supergirl has her quick little arc to learn to trust humans in like 3 minutes, and now we're ready for the classic comic book movie Act 3 action. Supergirl has her quick arc to learn to trust humans in like 3 minutes, and now we're ready for some classic comic book movie Act 3 action. Before I talk about how the movie wraps up, because I'm going to get really negative in a moment, I just want to take a moment to give props to Supergirl. I think her acting was great, her character was unique, and she was still very likable as a character, even though they didn't give her too much to work with. Like I said before, her arc to learn to trust humans was so quick and kind of pointless, even though all of that, like I said before, her arc to learn to trust humans was so quick and kind of pointless, but even through all that, I liked her character moments here, and I honestly liked her character moments throughout the rest of the movie. Would be nice to see more of her, but she'll probably get vaporized into irrelevance like many other aspects of the DCEU, for better or for worse. So I'm going to say now, I'm not a hater of the big Act 3 CGI fest trope. I mean, sometimes you have to just be real about it. We know why people come to see these movies, and if you're expecting a climax with very little action and you're going to get mad when they get a little formulaic, you're kind of just upsetting yourself by going to see that movie in the first place. We've been doing this for 20 years now. Come on now. We know how this goes. That being said, there's a way to do it right. There's a way to do it wrong. I don't think this movie did it right at all. I wasn't too upset at the action going on at first, but it was kind of just like, why are we in this random desert fighting these these military forces they're supposed to be Kryptonians, right? So why are they using guns and battleships and not just destroying everything in their path like Superman would? There's just too many unexplained things going on, when I know the reason was really we want to have this huge climactic battle in a big open area so we can have a bunch of destruction without really killing people off, since the DCEU has been criticized for killing too many people in the past. For some movies it can work because it makes more sense and there's more payoff built up for this final act from earlier in the movie, but for here I'm just kind of like, why are we here? So all this fighting happens, then we have our two Flashes start traveling back in time, trying to fix their failures in this battle. The concept of this I thought was pretty good and interesting, honestly. It fits back into the theme of the movie of letting go and how you just can't go back and fix your life. Unfortunately, very, very unfortunately, this is all ruined by that absolutely wretched and disgusting little worlds collide, multiverse, if you want to call it that, moment. So the CGI in this movie has been ragged on, but I think it's worth mentioning because it's truly one of the worst I've ever seen. I don't even really care when movies have bad CGI moments. There are some great movies that I grew up loving with questionable CGI. Just because tech has progressed and our eyes have become used to more advanced CGI in movies doesn't mean these old movies are unwatchable now, right? That being said, not only is the CGI in this movie so god-awful, especially when you think about how much time they had to spend on this movie and the standard that movies like this have set in the past decade or so, it also serves almost no purpose other than trying to force people into having this wow nostalgia moments for characters that honestly nobody really cares about. And I hope people don't take that the wrong way. Obviously there are hardcore comic book fans, hardcore DC fans, hardcore movie fans, people who are online enough to understand certain references, but the average person is not going to be amazed and wowed because Nicolas Cage Superman shows up. It'd be different if this was very clearly a movie that was made for hardcore fans of comics and movies and things like that, but it wasn't. This was just a regular movie, and now they're forcing all these things that I don't really care about and trying to get me to be like, oh my god, wow, this is crazy. Most people are going to be like, what the hell is going on? This part of the movie would be really bad, even if the CGI was great, to be honest. Christopher Reeve is obviously legendary and an icon in the superhero movie genre, but most moviegoers aren't going to be that interested. But most moviegoers just aren't going to be interested in a Superman from like 50 years ago, you know? That's just the reality of the situation. And then you have Supergirl show up for movies that most people don't even know exist. I'll be honest, I didn't know who Helen Slater was before this movie came out. I'll be honest, I didn't even know who Helen Slater was before seeing this movie, and I had to go home and look up who it was. Most people are not going to know the George Reeves Superman in black and white, and now some people are even upset because if you go and look at his cause of death, you start to feel like, was this really worth it? It's kind of a sticky situation. I'm not even someone that's all like, oh my God, I can't believe you used a dead actor. This is the death of cinema as dude. But it's just like, was it worth it to show these characters that the majority of people watching this movie do not even have an attachment to? There's good nostalgia moments in movies, for sure. There's also useless manufactured nostalgia, like the Fast and Furious series. They bring back all these characters who are dead They bring back all these characters that died like 2 movies ago that you kind of didn't even really care about in the first place. It's supposed to be like, whoa, this person is back. Like all the people, like when people crap on Marvel movies for just being cameo riddled nostalgia fest with no value and no impact, I think you're kind of mad at the wrong franchise here. I think Fast and the Furious takes the cake for that. You know, just setting up future movies that don't really have any importance, you know, vaguely referring to past plot lines from past movies that you don't even really remember, and then something happens, you're like, oh, I guess I kind of remember that. Like, that's Fast and Furious. I don't know why people get mad at other franchises for that. When Fast and Furious they've become a parody of themselves at this point. Anyways, I'm not gonna get into that. This movie was more akin to some of the stuff Fast and Furious does, to be quite honest. And it didn't really service the plot at all. So it's just really unfortunate. It just soured the ending of what I thought was shaping up to be a pretty dang good movie. It just soured the ending of what I thought was shaping up to be a pretty dang good movie up until this point. And now most people will leave with that fresh on their mind. Now most people are going to leave with all the CGI stuff fresh on their mind instead of the stuff that the movie did right. So honestly, the rest of the movie goes about how you would expect. Everything kind of fixes itself, but the big twist that most people also don't really care for is that it doesn't really fix itself. I will say the Clooney cameo was funny, and I get it. Like that was such a minor plot point, I understand that. But anyways, now the hard part for me. Should you see it, stream it, or skip it? Honestly, I feel like most people would say skip, but I think the first half of the movie is so good to where I would say see it. Your theater probably will be pretty empty anyways. There's a lot of movies right now. There's a lot of movies out right now, I get it. But hey, if you have the means to see it, honestly, the CGI might even make you laugh, might even brighten your day a little bit. Once again, folks, if you made it to the end of this movie, which is not likely, I will say once I get to 1,000, there's gonna be some prizes given out. I do movies and One Piece and basketball, so you know there'll be a different prize for those different categories once I get to 1,000, which may never happen, or may happen in like 5 years. But I made a promise, I'm gonna keep it. Thank y'all, appreciate it. I'll keep it going, you know, if y'all keep it going.